Hola clase, bienvenidos a la clase de arte otra vez. That just means, hi class, welcome to art class again. Did you know that in Spanish, wizards, like the Wiltshire Wizards, is magos? Senora Wait wants you to repeat after her. So she's going to say, repita por favor. That just means repeat please. Repita por favor, magos. Magos. That's what you are. Mis magos. You are mis magos. My wizards. So my wizards, mis magos. Today we are going to talk about two things. We are going to talk about sketchbooks and why they're important, and we are going to talk about design elements. And our first design element is going to be focused on lines. So first, what are the materials that you need today? Well, you need a pencil, and you need your sketchbooks, or your spiral notebooks, or your pieces of paper that you're keeping together in a safe place all together. Okay? So if you don't have those things, go ahead, pause the video, take a moment to get them, and then we're going to talk about sketchbooks first and why they're important to artists. So while I do that, I'm going to make my screen bigger because I would like to share with you some sketchbook entries of mine. So sketchbooks are important to artists because it's their place to practice. Just like somebody who plays basketball can dribble the basketball and shoot the basketball and then play defense against other players for practice, artists need a place to practice too. And that's what a sketchbook can be used for. They can also be used as kind of like a journal. That's kind of how we're going to use them. We're going to use them for practice and kind of like a journal. So, a little bit about my sketchbook. It's kind of old, it's kind of falling apart, and that's okay because that's kind of how sketchbooks are. The first thing that I want to show you is how I use my sketchbook for practice. Do you remember the picture that I showed you at the beginning of the video last week that said meet Senora Wait? Well, if you don't, I can remind you, this was the picture that I shared with you. But before I could get to that picture, I had to practice. And I want to show you how I was practicing. So I printed off a picture. Oops, let's make them match. Give me a second. There we go. So I printed off the picture that I wanted to create. And then, if you see down at the bottom, I tested the different colors to see if I liked those colors. And then I used a pencil to sketch out my faces. Once I thought that I did a pretty good job, I decided to start with color and to start with my dots. I decided that I didn't really like the color for the project that I was doing, so I didn't use too much color in the final project. And if I didn't start with the practice in my sketchbook, I would have never been able to get to this point where I did the final piece. This took a lot of time, and I couldn't have done it without the practice that I did in my sketchbook. So artists use them for practice. They can also use them as journals and a place to keep notes. I have some notes in my sketchbook that I look back onto too. They're printed notes, but I have written notes in here too. Something else that I wanted to share with you out of my sketchbook is an idea for something that I haven't really got around to finishing yet. And this is my savanna trees. So I drew a picture of a place called, goodness gracious, I can't remember it. All I can think of is Forsyth Park and Bonaventure, and those are not the places. But there's a place in Savannah where, Wormslow Park, and you drive through and it's this beautiful tunnel of trees. So I sketched out the trees, and then I just thought about different songs that reminded me of that time when I saw those trees first. Eventually, one day, I'm going to make a project out of this, and I use my sketchbook to kind of jot down the ideas and figure out this is where the sun is, this is where the light should hit, this is how the shadows should look. So I have my ideas, and when I'm ready, I can go ahead and make my project because I started in my sketchbook first. So there's lots of different ways you can use sketchbooks. So for our sketchbook, we're going to first talk about the design elements of lines. And there are lots of different kinds of lines. There are spiral lines, there are horizontal lines, there are wavy lines, and there are organic lines. Organic just means kind of like a tree grows, you know, or a vine. It just kind of follows the sun. And then, of course, there's zigzag lines, and then there's geometric lines. There's so many lines. And did you know what a line really is? Anybody got an idea? A line is just a dot to start with, just a dot that went for a walk. So what I mean by that is if you take a look here, if you started and you put your pen or pencil down here and you dragged it across, your dot just went for a walk. And that's all lines are. And here's another picture of how many different lines there can be and how many different ways that you can create lines. Mrs. N, the other art teacher here at Wilkshire, found a really awesome song that I shared with my first grader, and he loved it. So I had to share it with you. So we're going to watch this song about lines, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you what you're going to do for your first project and your first sketchbook entry. All right, here we go, the line song. So I hope you enjoyed the song as much as my first grader and myself did. Actually, my third grader really liked it too, to be honest. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil and your sketchbook and you're going to draw lines, all different kinds of lines. You're going to draw horizontal lines. You're going to draw spiral lines, wavy lines, organic lines, zigzag lines, geometric lines, which just means like different shapes. You're going to fill the whole page with lines. I found another one of my sketchbooks that was given to me by a friend, and I forgot that last spring I made a picture that has a bunch of different lines. I have horizontal, geometric, I have wavy, and I have spirals, and then I have some shapes. I'd rather you just do lines. So more so these three. But I want you to fill up the whole page like Senora Waite filled up the whole page of lines. And you're going to start first with a pencil. And that's because a pencil has an eraser. And if there's something you don't like, you can erase it. If you use a marker and you mess up, you can't erase that. Now in art, there's never truly any mistakes. But sometimes there are a time that you want to just do something a certain way. And a pencil lets you get it right the first time. Or erase it, fix it, and then it's right. So make sure you start in pencil first. Fill up the whole page with so many different lines. And I want to see like different lines. Like, what do you think a happy line would look like? I think a happy line for me would kind of be a spiral. But for you, it might look different. What would a bored line look like? I think that might be a bored line. But to you, a bored line might be something that looks a little different. So think about how emotions can make your lines do different things while you're making your lines. In your sketchbook, if you could please write design elements, and that's on the first slide if you need to know how to spell it. And then after design elements, I want you to write lines. L-I-N-E-S. That way, you know what this sketchbook entry was all about. It was about learning the first design element, lines. And then when you're done, just take a picture in Seesaw using the picture, the photo button, and then submit it here. And then I'll be able to see it. I can't wait to see all your beautiful lines, crazy lines, squiggly lines, angry lines, excited lines, sad lines, all the lines that you can come up with. I can't wait to see them. All right, adios, mis magos. Remember, that means my wizards.